everyone, it's Angie. Welcome back to my channel, Literary Labors. So normally what I do at the end of each year is I accumulate a stack of books that I have read throughout that year and which I am going to unhaul. That's what I did last year, but I did not film an unhaul at the end of the year, so I am doing that right now. This pile of books is actually a combination of books that I read last year, a couple of books that I read this year that I already know I'm going to get rid of, and then I went through my red shelf, which is that shelf right there, bookcase, and I was trying to be ruthless and get rid of as many books as I could. Books that I didn't love, but I had kept, or I was keeping in case I wanted to read these books later. But honestly, I don't want to keep any books unless they are books that I very much loved or found interesting in some way, maybe helpful, maybe books that I want to return to later on. So really that's all I want in my collection. So it's not many books, maybe 20 books. So I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it. I'm starting out with a professional development book that I received a couple summers ago. I was actually supposed to go to this workshop and I ended up not going. I was allowed to keep the book, and honestly I've looked through it a couple of times and it's just not one that I'm going to use, and that is Mathematics Worksheets Don't Grow Mathematics Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites. 20 numerous. Let's start that again. So the first book that I am unhauling is this book, Mathematics Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites, 20 Numeracy Strategies That Engage the Brain, Pre-K through 8 by Marcia L. Tate. I'm just going to stick that in my little box down here. Give me a moment. The second book is one that it actually pains me to get rid of because I was really hoping to read a classic novel in Spanish, and that is Pride y Prejuicio. Read a novel, learn a language. The easiest, most natural way to start reading, speaking, and thinking in a new language today. Poco a Poco, Jane Austen, and Chris Conkling and Raquel Alvarez. So the reason I'm getting rid of this one is because they've changed the story, which I understand. You know, you're talking about people who are barely learning to read Spanish, so you do need to maybe adapt the story a little bit to make it easier for non-Spanish speakers or readers. But since I already speak Spanish and I can read Spanish, I guess I probably just should have gone with the Spanish translation of the actual book instead of this adaptation, which I didn't realize was going to be an adaptation. I thought it was going to be, you know, word for word, a Spanish translation of the original. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I'm getting rid of it. Okay, I have 2 copies of this book, The 13th Tale by Diane Satterfield. I read this one with Jessica over on Instagram, I think at the end of 2020. I think we read it in December of 2020 and read it into January of 2021. I really like the story, but I don't need 2 copies. Okay, I am getting rid of The Little Prince in Spanish, El Principito. This is not necessarily a book that I like in English, and definitely didn't enjoy it anymore in Spanish. So I read it, I don't need to keep it. Alright, this next one is one that I read December of 2022. I really, really enjoyed it. This is Krampus, the Yule Lord by Bram. But I actually I bought the physical copy, and then I bought the Audible, the audiobook on Audible using a credit, and I really, really enjoyed the audiobook. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much had I just read the physical book. The narrator, the performer, did a really, really great job, and if I ever want to reread this, I've got the book on my Audible account. This next book is another one that I buddy read with Jessica, and this is The Library at the Edge of the World by Felicity Hayes McCoy. I bought this one off of Book Outlet, so it wasn't too expensive. Now, this was not quite what I was hoping it would be. I enjoyed it enough, but definitely not enough where I would want to read it again. At least I don't think I would. Maybe 10 years down the road when I've completely forgotten what I thought about the book, I might want to reread it, but at that point I'll just hopefully maybe check it out from the library. But yeah, not one that I want to keep. I am going to unhaul a book by Mimi Matthews, Fair as a Star. I read this one for a project that I started last year and never completed. I think I made it through March and then I just stopped on my project. But this was a book that was recommended to me by Tia from Tia and All the Books. I really enjoyed this book, but I didn't love it enough to justify keeping it. So I really love Mimi Matthews, but again, I think if I were to have a physical copy of her book, I would want a copy of The Lost Letter, I think is what it's called, not Fair as a Star. Although this was really good, definitely recommend it. I also have Captain a la Triste, The Adventures of Captain a la Triste by Arturo Pérez Reverte. I buddy read this one last year, I think it was, with Janelle from Too Fond of Books. I don't think either one of us was super impressed by the story. I don't know, it might be a translation issue. I believe this was originally published in Spanish. But yeah, it was okay. Not something that I plan to read again. I don't even plan to continue with the next book in the series. Okay, this next book is again part of the project that I started last year and didn't complete, and that is My Life in France by Julia Child with Alex Prudhomme. This was a book that was recommended to me by Kelly over at Books I'm Not Reading. I actually really enjoyed this one. I believe I gave it 4 stars. Very informative. I really liked learning more about Julia Child, who I really knew nothing about other than she was a very tall woman who was a chef and had a show on PBS. I remember watching episodes of her show back when I was in elementary school. But yeah, not one that I want to keep. I have book 1 in the Enola Holmes mystery series. This is The Case of the Missing Marquess. I bought several of the books in the series, not last year, but the year before. I don't remember if I bought the books after I found out Henry Cavill, sacrilege, that was sacrilege. If I bought the series after I found out he was going to star in, or co-star in the movie adaptation. But I read the book, I liked it very much, but if it's a book that I want to read again, I'll just check it out from the public library. Okay, back when Rainy from Rainy Day Reads and I were hosting Bitter Single Ladies Read Romance, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Maybe one day, someday, we can bring the club back. Anyway, we read the book The Half-Stitched Amish Quilting Club by Wanda E. Brunstetter. It was fine. I think it was an okay read. Definitely not one that I plan to read again, and I believe this is part of a series, not a series that I plan to continue, so I'm going to unhaul that. I read Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna a couple of years ago. I really enjoyed this. I believe this is my one and only Kristen Hanna book that I've read, but again, not a book that I necessarily want to read again, and if I do, I can get it from the public library. I am unhauling What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver. I've had this one for many, many years. I read it finally, not last summer, but I believe the summer before, for the Reading Rush, and yeah, they were adequate. They were fine stories. I'm not huge into short stories, so I think that was an issue with me, the reader, not the book necessarily. And also, I read these pretty quickly, considering the Reading Rush, I think, only lasts a week. Is that correct? And so, yeah, I was rushing through the story, so that didn't do the book any favors. Anyways, yeah, not one that I want to keep. This one was a lot of fun. I heard about it from Chrissy over at the Return Cart, and that is Helen and Troy's Epic Road Quest. Mythic Journeys aren't all they're cracked up to be. Oh, I thought that was the subtitle. It's not. By Ailey Martinez. This was a lot of fun, but I believe I read the audiobook, so I should still have that on my Audible account if I ever want to reread this. This is another book that I think I read for... No, not The Reading Rush. I think I read this one for middle grade March last year, and that is The Poet's Dog by Patricia McLaughlin. Not one of Patricia McLaughlin's best. She's written a lot better. Definitely not one that I plan to read again. I read The Duff, The Designated Ugly Fat Friend by Cody Keplinger. YA. It takes a lot for YA to really impress me. This one, you know, it was just like your average angsty YA, which I would have really loved had I read it when I was a young adult or even into my 20s, but I just kind of found it a little annoying, and there was some like physical intimacy that I just don't care to read about when it comes to teenagers. So yeah, not one that I am super impressed with, so I am getting rid of it. This next one is one that I am not going to talk very much about because of issues that I have, mostly in my mind, but yeah, this is Cradleland of Parasites by Sarah Tantlinger. These are poems, and I do not want to see this book ever again. Don't ask. All right, then I got this book from a friend who was giving away some of her daughter's old books, and I don't know why I picked it up. I decided not to add it to my classroom library because my kids are just not really interested in biographies. And this is Who Was Marie Antoinette? So giving it to half price. This next book is one that I got for free at a professional development, but it's not one that I'm necessarily interested in reading. I should have just left it and allowed somebody else to take it, but I picked it up and now I'm going to get rid of it. And that is The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind by William Kamkwamba and Brian Mealer. If I ever want to read it, I will check it out from my public library or get the audiobook. This next one is one that I'm getting rid of because I have the audiobook. I really like this, Soulless by Gail Carriger. I bought this ages ago. I think it was in the early 2000s. Let me see when this was published, because I don't want to lie. When it's got this little thing there. Let me see. When was this published? 2009. Okay, so I didn't buy it in the early 2000s, but I bought it pretty soon after it was published. So I've had this for a while. Somebody at Barnes & Noble, one of the employees, recommended it to me, and I had not read it until probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I really enjoyed it, but I have the audiobook. I think I have the audiobook. I should probably check to make sure I have the audiobook, because if I don't, then I'm going to keep it. Although I have read the second book, and the second book was just meh. I didn't care for it. So I have stopped reading the series because book 2 was kind of an obstacle for me. So I need to continue with book 3. Maybe I have read book 3 and I'm on book 4. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to set this one aside until I make sure that I have the audio book. Okay, this one is a book that I was going to keep because of one scene. This is at Fairfield Orchard by Emma Kane, and now that I'm looking at it, I think I want one final hurrah. I'm going to reread that scene. It was a intimate scene that involved a bookshelf and books. It was one of the most unique scenes I have ever read. It was done really well. The rest of the story didn't care for it. I have book 2. I probably should get to book 2, but I just didn't care for the characters. They were very flat. They felt like characters. But yeah, I want to go back and reread that scene. So I'm going to put that one aside until after I have read it, or read that one scene. All right, this is a book that I really liked, Miss Reed's Village School. But if what I would like to do is buy a nicer edition. It's not necessary to have a nicer edition, and in fact, I think I might actually just get the ebook. But yeah, I don't need the physical copy since I don't really care for the edition. Okay, I am getting rid of Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. I'm a little bit heartbroken that I'm getting rid of this one because this takes place in New Orleans, a city that I love with all my heart. But this was pretty boring, especially in comparison to City of Ghosts and Tunnel of Bones. And I don't know if part of it is because I've been to New Orleans several times and so the mystique is gone. Although I love New Orleans, like, don't get me wrong, I would visit, I would move there, maybe move there, not sure, but I would visit in a heartbeat. But since I've never been to Edinburgh or Paris, where the other two books are from, I feel like I enjoyed those a lot more because the cities are still mysteries to me, and so I had a really fun time imagining what it would have been like living there, whereas with this book I've already experienced New Orleans, and so it didn't have that mystery to it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm getting rid of this one. And you know what? I think I want to reread City of Ghosts. I think I'm going to do that for April. I think so. Okay, let me put this down gently. This year I read I read it at the end of 2021, Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. I don't know what it is, but I read a couple of books, a couple of his shorter works that start off amazing and then they just peter out. And that's what happened with this one. Love the writing. It didn't thrill me the way I hoped it would have. Now, one that I read this year is Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. I thought this one was going to be sort of eccentric and quirky and fun and just cozy the way I Capture the Castle is. I kind of thought the father in this book was going to be like the father in I Capture the Castle, and were they ever not the same? I don't want to give too much away, but this was really depressing to read. The family situation was not a good one. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this, which is a shame because it's such a cool little book. I mean, the cover's cool. Now, about 10 years ago, maybe more, maybe 10 years ago, I think so, maybe not that long ago, I don't know. It's been a while. A bookstore opened here where I live called, I don't remember the name of it. Darn. Anyways, an independent bookstore opened here where I live in Fort Worth. And my sister and I went to the grand opening, and while we were there, I purchased Marina by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. And I said that because of it being a new independent bookstore, whenever I finished reading the book, I was going to go back and purchase another book. And then once I finished that one, I would purchase another book and, continue that just to support the bookstore. I feel completely responsible for the fact that that bookstore went under because I bought this book and I did not read it for many, many years. And by the time I actually read the book, the bookstore closed down. And I feel like had I read this and read as voraciously the books that I purchased, I could have kept the business in business, and I didn't. So I feel very responsible for the fact that the bookstore here did not make it. But anyways, the story, I think I liked it, but not enough to keep it. Interesting. It was really interesting. Like, if you like sort of ghost stories, sort of stories that that make you feel like you're in a dream, then you might like this. I believe this is supposed to be YA, but it didn't necessarily feel like YA. Other than the kids, the main characters are teenagers. Alright, this year I also read The Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire, and I did not really enjoy any of the poems. There just was not a single one that made me feel compelled to keep the book. A couple of years ago I read The Scarlet Plague by Jack London. This was alright. not my favorite. My first Jack London, I've not read anything else by him, but yeah, not one that I want to keep. And finally, I have The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I read this one a few years ago. In fact, I want to say our buddy read it with maybe Tia and Lacey, and I think Lindsay from Lindsay Reads. But anyways, I really love this, and I had decided to keep it, but when I was going through my bookshelves, deciding to just get rid of as much as I could, I decided that while I like this book a lot, I could probably get it from the library or purchase it off of half price if I really, really felt like I needed to own the book. Anyway, those are the books that I am unhauling, and yeah, I've made a little bit of extra space on my shelves, so I guess that means I get to buy more books, maybe. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you later.